What? Another Mavericks Clippers video here. Back with a positively relentless reunion of sorts. I'm back with my dude, Big Game James. James, how are you doing today?
I am doing good, dog. It's been a long time because the last time we were talking Mavericks football, look at Mavericks football, Mavericks basketball, we was miserable.
Yep.
We didn't have no size. We didn't have we didn't have no athleticism. We didn't have no second scorer. We didn't. It
Yep.
just looked bleak. And guess what? Nico came in and he said, "Hey, we're gonna make this right. I'm gonna promise you, we're gonna make this right." He's been on the grind, and I'm excited to talk about some Mavericks basketball now, for real.
Yeah. It's been a hot minute, like you said, since we talked Mavericks. Yeah, the to say that Nico has left his mark on this team is an understatement because the everything they've had, even just going back to the deadline last year, the Kyrie trade, and then managing to re-sign Kyrie, the moves he made this year at the deadline, which even as they happened, that was the first video I kind of came back from another hiatus with talking about those moves, PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford. And I focused mostly on PJ, as did most people in the media talking about it. But like Gafford, I mean, no disrespect to PJ, he's had a tremendous impact that goes well beyond his scoring struggles so far with Dallas. But Gafford's impact is way bigger for this team than I certainly was even giving credit for. Even as I talked about it, it was like, yeah, but PJ Washington, oh, and Gafford, that's a potentially solid pickup too. And ever since then, I'm like, I almost need to retitle that video because it's almost like when you talk about the deadline, people are almost thinking more so about Gafford just because of his impact, whether it's his insane chemistry with Luka and Kyrie, or just the defensive impact and rim protection, the alley-oop threat, all that he's brought to the table. That's completely changed this team's identity since the season began.
Yeah, I totally agree, man. I mean, I will buy with you on the PJ Washington because that was great, shrewdness, getting rid of Grant Williams for him because you can see where the liabilities were with Grant Williams defensively,
Yeah.
athleticism, reach sliding on. I just felt like he was a limited athlete.
Still got it, but our sound is cut for you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're there. I got you.
I
We got
think
you.
I'm going out.
All
You got
right.
me?
Well, if this turns into a solo act for a minute, I
Okay.
hear you.
So,
If we go solo for a minute, we'll make do while we
okay.
get this
So
situated. But
my fault. My fault. I'm getting to it. I might be in a bad area, but the
sure.
main thing I was saying, I'm agree with you with the situation with Gafford and PJ Washington. I just feel like PJ Washington offered more athleticism than a Grant
Mm.
Williams did, and you really see it showing. But that Gafford, 100% with you with that Gafford deal. Ooh, you know how bad I was mad that we had JaVale McGee and daggone Dwight Powell. And to get
Yeah.
Derek Lively, number one, in that draft, we was super excited about him. I love what he's done. He just got to stay healthy. But to have him and Gafford, we got two athletic bigs. That feels good now. And just like you said, the chemistry that both of them have with Luka and Kyrie, with the alley oops, rim protection. We got guys that actually rim protect now and bring out athleticism. We have athleticism on the wing with Derrick Jones Jr. and PJ Washington. Dante Exum has been, oh man, I'm excited, bro, because if you look at our Western Conference final, Ross, 2 years ago to this one, what?
Mm-hmm.
It's night and day.
Yeah, no, it really is. I mean, that team, and even as that run was happening, I was talking about it, saying like, look, this thing is kind of held together by like bubble gum and like scotch tape. Like they are
Facts.
incredibly thin at the front court. They have no rim protection. They know certain areas that they're just going to have to concede. Like we're going to lose in those areas, but we have to make up for it with swarming defense and timely 3-point shooting. And the 3 guard lineup they had there running Dinwiddie, Luka, and Brunson was stellar. And the thing is, like, and I talked
Mm-hmm.
about this in the last video that I put out, but the 3 guard lineup, it's a much smaller sample size that it's been deployed so far, but the 3 guard net rating basically with Luka, Exum, and Kyrie is like an insane net rating. I don't have the numbers in front of me right this minute, but it was like a plus like 25 or something net rating between offensive and defensive rating, like just staggeringly good. And now I'm not saying like it's the same situation there because with Exum, he's not the same kind of shot creator for himself that you would have with like Dinwiddie, but like Dinwiddie's got a little bit of Tim Hardaway Jr. to him. He likes to play the hero ball at times, and there were plenty of stretches in that playoffs where Dinwiddie was frustrating the heck out of us with just poor shooting, forcing the issue, etc. You don't have that problem with Exum. Exum kind of understands his role, but he can still step up and hit big shots as he's shown down the stretch of this season. So the having them and the fact that you were able to add Exum on, I think, a vet minimum deal in the offseason, and Derrick Jones Jr., same thing, like a 1-year vet minimum type of situation. The two of them, like as much as we were just talking about the trade deadline, like those are the masterclass works by Nico. Those are finding value when you've got $1 in your pocket and you found a way to get huge impact players for you. That's significant talent evaluation and then being able to close the deal.
Right. Definitely. Like I said, I love what they said. He came to the podium. Nico came to the podium, and it was like 30. They were 38-44, and he basically said, "Hey, we're going to be right back where we were. Don't fret. We're going to do this." And me and you talked, before we went on air, before how it was huge. Them just basically, and I think TGK. I think that's the name. I don't know if I said it correctly. He's a beast in the Maverick streets. And, he made a tweet saying that, people aren't talking about enough how Dallas has made Kyrie feel great. He's feel at home. He feels comfortable. He doesn't have to worry about all that extra garbage stuff that he had to in these other markets. He doesn't have to worry about that. And he can just be free, be himself, and play basketball. And you're seeing it. You're seeing that when you just let Kyrie be himself and you don't be tripping on him, guess what? He is a good teammate. Guess what? He does share the ball. Guess what? He does want to win. Guess what? We seeing that now. And I'm just glad that Nico and the Mavericks have made it comfortable for him. It was huge because it was the talk of on the offseason how they got to re-sign Kyrie, and it wasn't a sure 100% guarantee he was coming back. So for you to be able to grab him and bring him back, and he's happy, and look at what the team is doing, bro. All we need to do is get past these Clippers. I'm calling that upset against Oklahoma. Get past them Clippers.
Okay. Yeah, it's really impressive what they've been able to put together here. And so now, as we head into this third matchup with the Clippers in 5 years in the postseason, things feel a little bit different. The more they stay the same, the more I guess they do in fact change. As I flip that expression, realizing only as I was saying it that I was actually going to have to flip it. But these two teams could not be more different than they were previously. And so while people might want to point to it and say like, well, look at Luka's absurd numbers against the Clippers in the playoffs, like he's going to feast. And it's like, he's capable of doing that. Yeah. The whole point is he doesn't have to do that anymore. He doesn't have to go with that insane like usage. He's not running out there with Trey Burke, Boban out there with him in key situations, in key games in this series, like in his starting lineup. He actually has depth and help around him. Like he has length and athleticism, like you were talking about. He has rim protection. He has a viable lob threat to it, because even when they got to the 2021 series, KP was still on the team, but KP had basically quit on Dallas at that point. He basically, after the fact, even said, like, I was basically just camping out in the corner, and if the ball came to me, I'd look to shoot a three. But at that point, I was kind of done dealing with Rick. So it's like, yeah, Luka had to drag the wagon as far as he could, and he still twice nearly knocked off a team that was considered a title contender. Now, as you look at it, the Clippers are a little bit longer in the tooth. They've added more stars, yes, but again, they've added guys that are in their mid-30s with a lot of miles on them, Westbrook, Harden, and I just have reservations about how far I think this Clippers team goes, especially because it still sounds, I'm still going about this as if Kawhi is going to play, but the more that I keep hearing on it, the more it's like he might miss game one, because even though we saw like the video of him at practice, not actually practicing, but just there. And the more we keep hearing, like he's mentally getting ready. It's not so much that he's been physically doing stuff. It's like, okay, well, whether he misses game 1 or not, if he's vulnerable, if their Terminator is vulnerable, then I feel like this is just different already. Not just the different pieces for Dallas, but Kawhi was the only reason that they beat you the 2 times they did, because you just didn't have an answer.
That's it.
The best you could throw at him was Maxi Kleber or Dorian Finney-Smith. And like Finney's good, but like when you also have Paul George on that team, even though he was ho-hum in 2020, you just are putting a lot of burden on your few defensive guys that you have. You don't have that problem so much now. So if Kawhi is vulnerable, first of all, I test the knee. I attack constantly. I go
attack.
Try to go to his right. It's the right knee. Try to make him push off, change directions, run him through screens and all kinds of mess if you can. Just make him work, because maybe it doesn't show up game 1. Maybe it shows up, or maybe it doesn't show up the first quarter. Maybe it shows up in the first game. Maybe it's second, third, whatever. It's a war of attrition. And at some point, more likely than not, it's going to show up. He's already had to get an injection in his knee to try and get him ready for the first game of the playoffs. So if you're at that stage, that doesn't bode well for a grueling physical series. And unlike 2021, when Paul George said, like, yeah, they don't have any rim protectors, so it's just about getting in the paint. No, you got plenty of them now. It's a whole different world for you in here. And so you're going to see the other side of it. This is not the same. And I feel like Dallas, even though they're the lower seed, it's not like they're the underdogs to me in my mind. I know a lot of people are making them a trendy pick for the win, but like I broke down, if you looked at post deadline, the Mavericks last 30 games versus the Clippers last 32, the Clippers were basically 500. They were 17-15. Mavericks were 21-9. The Mavericks, once they set this roster and completed this identity shift, were just sprinting through this. Part of that was a little bit of a more manageable strength of schedule, but there's plenty of times where these two teams faced off against the same opponent in the same, general window of time, and the Mavericks were beating them and the Clippers weren't.
Yeah, I look at that just like you said, and it wasn't like Dallas was losing to not quality opponents. Dallas was beating quality opponents as well. So it wasn't like Dallas was, playing under 500 teams and just beating the mess out of them, gaining wins and things of that nature. They were getting legit wins as well against above 500 teams. So that bodes well for Dallas. I think I just have that antsiness, maybe a little bit nervousness about this, but I just feel like we're the better team all through and through. And just like you said, when we play Dallas played the Clippers those other times, we was banging with them guys. And we had nobody, and we was banging with them. And like you said, the deciding factor was Kawhi Leonard. And if I'm you, I'm going to look at if he does play, who's going to match up. He's a small forward. Maybe will they try to match him up against Dinwiddie? Just slipped my mind. Not Dinwiddie. Jones, Derrick Jones Jr. Will they try to put him on somebody who's not effective offensively, so he can kind of rest the knee, don't get hit on the screens? Because if they put him on like a PJ Washington, I'm like, hey, PJ, you got to attack him. We got to see where that's at. We got to get PJ to drive the hole against him, put pressure. We need people to put pressure on that knee, not shooting jump shots against him. He's guarding you, put pressure, take him to the hole. Let's see how that knee is really working. You know what I mean? That's the things that we really need to do to attack him. But just once again, like you said, what Paul George said, they don't really got no rim protection. Well, like now we got it. Now we got rim protection. Now we got guys who want to block your shots, start the break, and we got guys that will attack you on the break. So I just feel like this is a good matchup for us. Kawhi is maybe a factor, but man, I said we should beat them in 6 or 7. We could get them in 5 or 6 for real. If Dallas, that first game is going to be huge. Let's go ahead and get that first game, smack these boys up a little bit. Let's attack these dudes. Because like I said, I'm not trying to look ahead, right? Maybe I am. But if we beat them, will we be playing OKC because OKC's the number 1 seed?
I think there would be one more before that potentially, but it could be. Yeah, it could be.
One more before.
So yeah, no,
okay.
It would be OKC, I believe. But yeah, that's
it would be OKC.
Yeah, because Denver is the 2. So yeah, because someone asked me that last video, and I said I thought Denver, but then I was wrong about that. It would be likely OKC. But anyway, yeah,
y'all heard it from me. Dallas going to the Western Conference Finals. Dallas and Denver. I'm saying it now on the show. Y'all listen to me. Y'all heard it. Dallas and Denver in the Western Conference Finals.
Interesting. I like it. That will definitely
Hmm.
get a lot
Hmm.
of attention for that, especially
Hmm.
if Jokic gets his
Hmm.
MVP, which is a mess of voting. That's a whole different thing. But
Right.
yeah, so looking at this matchup, I really feel like Dallas has the weapons to actually contend with them. And Dallas was one of the, I think you have to exclude the last game of the season against OKC because they didn't play Luca or Kyrie the last two. They basically phoned it in, just like,
Hmm.
hey, everybody stay healthy.
Hmm.
We're gonna run all our backups just to stay
Hmm.
healthy. We don't care. But even in that situation, Dallas, I think, had a top 5 road record this year. Like they were good on the road, not like stellar. Like even as I say that, I think it was. I'm trying to remember the stat when I saw it. I want to say it was something like 26-18, but still, solid. Again, top 5 in the NBA road record. So being on the road isn't the worst thing for them, especially when you got two guys that are just bona fide assassins, want to go out there and snatch your soul. They're going to actually like
Right.
feed on that even more, knowing like, oh, I got a crowd that's just going to fall deathly silent when I sink this shot. Like they're gonna love that. They're gonna feed off of that and try to use that as motivation. So that's already one thing to look at there. Also, just the fact that your bench players, your role players, generally your role players are going to play better at home than they will on the road. But I think Dallas has a good enough balance with its bench that I don't have to worry as much in my mind about them having to rely too heavily on something. Like technically Tim Hardaway Jr. is still your third leading scorer, but PJ Washington is right behind him. And if you're just going on like a pecking order sort of thing, Hardaway's going to get more shots just because that's what he does. But the Mavericks really got good
Hmm.
in the latter part of the year about scaling back how much they were trying to utilize him. Like when things were really getting shaky for a minute there post deadline, they were still playing tons of minutes for Hardaway, just trusting he would shoot through it and be fine. And I get it. He had a stretch early in the year where he was pretty good, but he's just been in a mess for so long that now they're like, okay, we're going to limit your minutes and probably not going to really let you see the fourth quarter at all unless we're talking garbage time. And that's been effective for them. In certain instances, he hasn't played in the second half. And these have been quality games that they're beating these good teams with. So you're not having to rely on him as heavily. You're getting enough of what you need out of the combination of Gafford and Washington, whether it's a game where Dante Exum chips in, a good contribution for that. Doesn't matter. You're not having to look to like one place. It's not like you got 3 guys that score, and if one of them isn't really a star but is usually consistent, and oh look, he's not consistent this game, now Luka and Kyrie have to do everything. That's where you kind of get into trouble. But I feel like there's enough balance between that 3, 4, 5, 6 scorer thing that you don't have to worry as much about it.
Yeah, I agree. And we were the things like I said. What's up, Steven? Shout out to everybody in the building. I'm sorry if I haven't been able to talk to anybody the whole time because I'm on my phone, so I can't really answer anybody. But shout out to everybody in the building. But just the things that you said, our starting 5 is legit. You feel me? And the fact that we don't have to rely on a Dwight Powell, that just makes me feel good inside. Because it used to just feel our defensive capabilities would go down when we had to really rely on other guys. And when you have to play Luka damn near the whole game, it's not good for you.
Yeah.
So you feel better that you got a confident bench to where you got guys can come off and can score and keep the flow of the game going without losing the game side of the game. That just bodes well for me. And like I said, Kyrie, I know we look at Gafford, Lively, PJ Washington, but to me, Kyrie is our key in my opinion because this man is happy. And
Yeah.
I want him just to really explode because I just feel like he has been in a good place. I don't know. I don't think he was a good place in Cleveland because I've been here in Ohio. So I know he wasn't in no good place in Cleveland. Even when LeBron came, he wanted to be comfortable. And even with LeBron, I felt like reason why he wanted out with LeBron, because I don't think there was the real coolness, the real closeness, the realness. And I
Right.
feel like LeBron didn't really understand him and he wanted out of it. I really feel like he has a genuine friendship with Luka. That is big. That is big. I feel like they have a genuine friendship and they genuinely want to each other to do well. That is huge when both of you guys are top players.
Yep.
Okay. When you have top players like that, those guys can carry a team. But when you got a team behind it, when you got the addeds behind it, the defense that you maybe didn't have, and we know how Kid likes to play defense, right?
Yep.
We got that defensive numbers up from years ago. Oh, I don't know. I'm just excited. I'm ready to get after these Clippers, dog. That is kind of like we get past them, I'm feeling good. But just because they have a lot of the quote unquote star players, they are going to be playing at home. We are going away. But I just feel like my key, right, for real in this series is Kyrie. I'm calling Kyrie the key in this series to me.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely the major difference maker, I think. Like, and the big part of Luka not having to carry everything is just the presence of Kyrie. Having him and having that ability to depend on him is huge because they've not had that at all. Even like I said, 2021, you had KP, but you had the shell of KP at that point. He didn't start his reclamation project until he went to Washington that next year and then found himself finally now in Boston. So good. He finally had to embrace the role that he should have embraced when he was with Dallas, but that's neither here nor there.
Facts.
So yeah. So now that you're in this situation here, it's like you have Kyrie who's able to do some of the heavy lifting, able to take some of that burden off of Luka. Luka doesn't have to average 33, 34 points a game just for them to have a chance to win these games. You have an ability to sustain him longer as opposed to that. Because even if you had snuck past LA either of those 2 previous years, he had nothing left, dude. Luka was spent. But like he was the Jimmy Butler game 6 of the finals, like doubled over meme back from the Disney World games in the first round against the Clippers in 2020. Because he was just like, my God, what I had to just drag to get this team this far, you know? It's a totally different world just on that. And, you know, for the Clippers fans that are looking at this, and I saw some people mentioning it in the chat there that I haven't seen the verification of it yet, but that the Clippers actually got fined for not disclosing Kawhi's health situation. Let's see. Let me see if I misread that. Reported by Shams just now, Clippers were fined for failing to disclose the health status of 3 players. That's on April 14th, so 5 days ago. Yeah, I mean, that's I could see that being the case. Let me look at Shams' page here. Yep, $25,000 for violating the injury reporting rules on April 14th for failing to disclose the status of Paul George, Russell Westbrook, and Norman Powell. Interesting. So, yeah, I mean, I think they're just trying to play it close to the vest. They're probably willing to eat that money. But for Clipper fans and everyone pointing to like, hey, Kawhi's averages against the Mavericks were just absolutely otherworldly. Like, yeah, they were. The difference, I think, is if you're having to deal with the leg like you are, if you're having to deal with your knee, you're probably not going to be in a position where you're averaging 32 points, 8 boards, 4.6 assists, 2.3 steals, 1 block on 61, 43, 90 shooting. Like, you're probably not going to be able to do that. And again, it's not apples to apples. It's a completely different Mavericks team now. And as I stepped back and looked at this from like post-trade deadline picture, these teams felt like they were trending in very different directions. The Clippers are still loaded. They're still talented. They have the ability to win the series. I'm not saying that like this is a layup, but
right, for sure.
Everything I look at makes me think that Dallas is the hotter team. Dallas is the healthier team. And we talked about this before. The Mavericks have never been in a position where Luka has been able to rest going into the playoffs. They've had to just go run it through to the end. He just got 10 days rest, him and Kyrie. That's going to mean something. And Kawhi Leonard getting 23 days, it doesn't count if your knee swelling and you're not on practice at all. You know what I mean? Like you're getting rust at that point. You're not getting rest. So yeah, it's a very different situation. They actually have tools now. They're trending in the right direction for me to think that this is going to be a different series. But really, it's that interior defense that I think spells it. Because early in the year, and really last few years, because you didn't have rebounding, because you didn't have rim protection, you had to live and die by the 3. So if you had a game where he's going to shoot 14 threes and he's only going to make like 4 of them, and you would have those games, you were in trouble. Because like game 7,
big trouble.
2021, game 7 against them, Luka was the only Maverick really doing anything from three. I forget exactly how many. He had like 46 or 48 points. I don't remember how many threes he had, but every Maverick not named Luka Doncic in game 7 of that series was a combined 1 of 14 from behind the line. That's how much burden he had to carry. The difference now, if you look at the Mavericks record post All-Star break, there were a lot of games they weren't shooting the three well, but they were winning. Why?
Mm-hmm.
Because they were winning the rebounding battle by 15, 20, 25 rebounds. They were winning the offensive glass, doubling up the other team like 16-8 regularly. They were getting several blocks at the rim, just distracting, breaking up shots, just making teams have to alter in the paint and make life difficult. And that allowed them to play an ugly game of basketball, at least in terms of, how they're getting the win, but they were converting wins that they never would convert in the past. That's the difference. That's why I say these teams are so far removed that it's not even the same conversation. It's a rematch in name only.
Name only. And also, bouncing off that, they found games to win. And, that was the disturbing thing for me, DDP, is how they always had to live and die by the three. We saw so many games a few years ago where they start out shooting threes and you're like, man, take that to the hole. Reggie Bullock, go to the hole. It's wide open. Why are you shooting the three? It was almost like that was a part of their game. Like the 3-point, that was their main part of their game. And teams knew that as well. Teams knew that if they don't shoot good, all we got to do is keep them off boards and they're going to get run off the building. It's not like these teams did not know that. And now it's a different game when you have an inside presence. It's a whole different game when you have insights, when you can come off the bench with inside presence. It changes everything for you as a team. And once again, it's a better feeling when you don't have to live and die by this 3-pointer. You actually can miss threes and still stay in the game because now you can come back and play defense. Which Dallas before, you miss a 3, they come back, get beat up on the break. Next thing you know, they're down 10 out of nowhere, calling timeouts. So that is huge when you have that defensive presence, not even having to block the shots, alter the shots, changing the shots, changing the shots in the paint. That helps your team. And when you got wing protection, Derrick Jones Jr., PJ Washington, your forwards can actually play defense as well. I'm telling you, Jason Kidd has already said he wanted to become a more defensive team when he became the coach, right? Mm-hmm. That's one of the things he wanted to become more of a defensive team. If you look at the players that we have now, you can see the switch that's already come. We still got bona fide scores, but you can see the switch defensively and the mindset that defense is important, and you can see how much of the change is. But once again, Luka coming into the playoffs, this is the first time, in my opinion, he has a bona fide number 2 guy or 1A that when you're going into the playoffs, it's a different feeling when you're a hooper and you've been carrying your team in the playoffs, and now I got a dog with me going into these playoffs, and we're playing well together. It's a different mind state when you're coming in. And I feel like that mind state is going to help us as we get ready to go against these Clippers. And I've been listening to the comments. I'm excited, man. I am excited about this Clippers matchup. This one, because it feels like they've gotten the best of us those last few years. And it's been like, man, we've been right there and we ain't even had your guys. We ain't even had the guys that you have, and we still banging with y'all. Now we got guys, and we're ready to kind of just take over you because you've been escaping the last few years, beating us in the playoffs, and now it's your time, Clippers, to get what y'all. It's your time to get what you've been getting deserved now.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting too, because if you look back at those 2 series previously, Luka playing Zubats off the floor immediately. Luka just beating up on him in the switch. The Clippers center forcing those switches on the pick and roll, and then just hitting step back threes on him left, right, and center. And the last go round, I think it was like game 1 or something of that series. It literally took him like 2.5 minutes to play Zubats off the floor. Like, you cannot contend with him. You cannot deal with him. The difference is now because you have Gafford and Lively. Now we'll see if Lively, what his availability is as he comes back from a knee sprain.
Please, Lively. Please be okay, Lively.
Yeah, I'd like to see him get at least limited minutes, be smart about it. Don't force the issue. Don't rush him back, especially after, he just lost his mom like in the last week. So, you don't know what his head state is, but it also could be one of those things where that's a good thing for him, getting that distraction and being able to be in the game. But going through that, just seeing that, like, okay, if you got Luka headhunting Zubats, just destroying him like he's done in those 2 previous series, but the Clippers can't take Zubats off the floor because then Lively and Gafford are just going to catch oop after oop after oop. Like what's it's a series of chess moves. Like, what do you counter with if you're the Clippers? What move do you make to try and do that, or do you just try and say like, look, we're just going to have to deal with it and live with Luka just destroying Zubats, and we're just going to have to hope that the Mavericks don't get enough out of their role players. Stay home, let Zubats get eaten alive, basically, and see if the Mavericks' other players can beat you. Because in the past, they couldn't. The other Maverick players could not step up and do enough heavy lifting. And so the Clippers even said in retrospect that, like, they're like, yeah, no, I mean, we just had to let Luka get his because we knew he was going to. The question is, could we do enough to keep the other guys from beating us? And in those 2 instances, yes. Now I don't know if it's going to be so easy, especially when you add the kind of linked athleticism and the fact that they actually push pace now. The Mavericks is
Yes.
I've been begging for this for 5 years. I'm like, you have one of the best passers in the league. Even if you want to say like Luka isn't in ideal shape or whatever, okay, fine. All the more reason he shouldn't want to run. Throw a full. He can drop a 94-foot pass on a dime for an alley oop. It doesn't even have to like catch the dude in stride. He's literally throwing it to him at the cusp of the rim for him to just dunk it. Like, he did that like 3 or 4 times in the final month or 2 of the season, it seemed like. So it's like, yeah, you have guys, you have thoroughbreds out there that can just sprint up and down the floor. And by the way, some of those thoroughbreds are your centers. Like, you got guys that can move. You got guys who can get down the floor and get buckets before the other team has a chance to even realize what's happening. You could demoralize a team. And we saw this in that Miami game, that last regular season win, when they blew the doors off in the second quarter. Was they got a 3, Miami missed a shot, Dallas got a bucket, and then Miami had a shot in the paint that got altered. Dallas stripped the guy who rebounded it, threw it full length court, and you got a transition dunk. And it was just like, in the course of like 20, 30 seconds, it went from like still kind of there to like, oh no, it's like 20 or 22 now. Like, Dallas just blew the doors off and never had to really look back in that. I know it got down to like 11 again later on, but they put it away. And that's what it is. It's like, when you get those kind of transition buckets, that they break your back, because it's like, okay, we got to hang in tight. We got to withstand this. They're going on a barrage right now. We need to stand our ground. Damn it. Okay. Like, you don't even have time to process like what's happening. Like, oh crap, back on defense. Well, never mind. They already got another bucket. Now it just feels like it's completely breaking open. So you get those buckets instead of just walking the ball up the floor, setting up the half court offense. I know that Dallas is good in the half court too, but there's no reason that you shouldn't take advantage of transition buckets when it's literally free money. You got the guys that can do it. And for once this season, they've been doing it.
Yeah, I totally agree. And was looking at Cowboys X Factor. I'm feeling Cowboys X Factor where he said, man, I wish we would have had this squad in 2022 against them Warriors, because I think we could have beat them. I for real feel like if we had this squad against them Warriors a couple years ago, we could bang with them and possibly beat them. You know what I'm saying? Because this team is exciting. But just like you said, yeah, I just look at little things like Tim Hardaway Jr. We was relying on him. You feel me? And we ain't never want to rely on him because we know how he is. Now you don't bother me, Tim Hardaway Jr. You don't bother me. You get what I'm saying, DDP? You don't bother me because you ain't the guy. You ain't the guy that we feel like we need to depend on for points. So you don't bother me now when you're playing and shooting. It just, man, Nico, let me give you a pound, bro. Let me give you a shout out. Shout out to these Mavericks. Y'all don't do what these Cowboys do. Y'all don't sit on your hands and wait for things to happen. Y'all make things happen. And I love how they said, you know what? We ain't losing Luka.
Right.
We ain't losing Luka. We got one of the best guys out here, and we're not going to do that. So we're going to do everything. And we're not just going to say it, DDP. We're not going to just say it in the media. We're going to do everything. They went out there and did it and made this team heads and shoulders better than it was in prior years. And I love the direction. I love the way Nico is. He seems like he's always foot on the gas. He's always never taking never leaving no stone unturned. He's always looking to always make this team better. And I love it. And even if, like you said, the guys on the maybe 1 year minimums, anything like that, I know he's going to be in the lab, already in the lab, looking to still continue to make the team better from that point. Just the shrewd moves. I just feel great about the team. Once again, man, Gafford, PJ Washington, man, it's been a long time since I've been excited. in Dallas
Yeah.
land, period. We had the Rangers, but I haven't been excited about the Mavericks. I've been frustrated. But to see how they've made this quick turn in a couple of years has me excited. And, I'm gonna also say this too, DDP. We just talked about how the Clippers could win this series. I feel like they've had our number because of the matchups. Now I feel like we can get them. Let's say just for some reason it doesn't work this year, and let's say you got exited early. I still wouldn't be mad because I'm always on the air of aggressive.
Yeah.
As long as my team is staying aggressive and trying to always make this team better, I'm not going to fault them. When it's not when they're sitting around and they're not making things happen and you lose, that's when I'm frustrated. That's a difference to me.
Yeah. No, I agree. And one of the things I kind of look at with the Mavericks, I think at this point, because Nico's job and what he did converting the roster, if you look at just what the roster was last year compared to this year, the total transformation and what it cost for them to make these changes, it's masterfully done. We talked about the Jalen Brunson fiasco being his kind of welcome to the NBA moment. He's really rebounded quite well from there. But as I kind of look at that, as I think about this offseason, it's inevitable to me that Jason Kidd's going to get a new contract. I still have mixed feelings about that. Kidd, I understand Kidd has produced now 2 of his 3 seasons a 50-win year. The Mavericks in the last 10 prior to him had 1 such 50-win season. So his resume is going to get it. The West Finals run, you can talk about that being, the hot streak run or whatever, that being the team that just got red hot. I get it. But at the same time, we're in a position where they're probably going to give Kidd a new deal. And I still feel like that's not your best course. I still have concerns about that. Yes, he finally got the message and started restricting and limiting the role for Hardaway. Fans were calling for it forever. I don't know if it was just him not wanting to sound like he was taking the advice essentially of the fan base, or if it was just really trusting that Tim would eventually shoot his way out of it. I don't know. But even though he's made like adjustments like that, there's been key situations where I felt like in game, he's not adjusting quick enough to what's happening, whether it's his rotations being confusing, whether it's failing to make adjustments to what the other team is starting to take advantage of. That is a point that I do still have some concern. I do still look at this team and think like, is there ultimately a cap? Now, if you have enough talent, it doesn't matter. I mean, I know Ty Lue gets a lot of credit now. He was the coach when LeBron and Cleveland got it with Kyrie and everything. I get that. But at the same point, I still don't think of Ty Lue as a great coach. I think he's a good coach. I think he's got good tactician, if you will. But I still look at Kidd and wonder, like, do you have enough talent top to bottom? We know the very top is good to step above and be a difference maker for this team. Because that was the thing, like with the 2011 run, Rick was on his shit that entire run. There was really no game in that run that I looked at and I was like, man, this guy's just, taking advantage here. He's just out coaching him. I feel like towards the end of Rick's time, that was happening for sure. But I don't know that I've seen like a series where I'm like, this is Jason Kidd. This is his stamp of approval. Maybe you could say that Phoenix series, which to be fair, that was a really great series. But I don't know. That's still a reservation I have as I think about this. The one thing that I would be cautiously optimistic about would be Jason Kidd probably getting a new deal this summer. It's just because I'm still like, I understand it, but I'm also still not quite convinced.
Yeah,
shout out.
That's fair.
Master Fame.
That's very fair. What's up, TGK? What's up with your big dog? What do you say? Your big game? Aren't the Mavs the polar opposite of what the Cowboys, Mavs since 2000 have always been more aggressive franchise, acting like a 5-time chip as opposed to the actual one? You ain't lying, TGK. You ain't lying. Like, and when the noise gets loud in Dallas Mavericks land, they get to listening. They get to instantly listening. And when they player get to talking, they get to instantly listen. That's what I like. They listen to their guys. Okay. I think the biggest thing, like you just said right now, DDP, is the Jason Kidd thing. You were spitting on that one, bro. Like you were spitting because I told you I like Kid. I'm not saying you hate on him because that's what you're saying is very reasonable. Um, just because you're getting these 50 wins doesn't mean like you're going to be the next 10 years getting a 50, 60 win guy. You may not be that coach. And we see you in games where we scratch our head like, why are you doing that? It's obvious. Like, why are you doing that? Why are you late and making this swap out? Why are you late with the defense? Like, I feel you, DDP. This to me, though, I really want to look at this Clipper series, how he coaches in this Clipper series, because that's going to be a defining moment, in my opinion, because, the Clippers have ousted Dallas. So let's see how you coach in this Clipper series and then kind of go forward. Like you said, Stamp is probably going to get him the contract because of the wins and how you have improved. But I feel with you saying err on caution, especially let's look at this series in particular and see how he coaches it, because this is a series that the Mavericks need to win.
Both of his 50-win years were propelled by late season pushes too. Like Dallas was gaining momentum post All-Star break 2 years ago, because at the very start of his first year, it was ugly. Guys looked like they had no idea what was going on out there, like what their assignments were defensively, and the offense looked broken. Like it looked really bad. Like in the first week, people were like, "We sure about this? Are we sure about this?" They got hot though, and obviously they had the run that they did. But then the next year happened, and we saw what they looked like. And then the start of this year happened, and we were like, okay, well, this year it's largely health. But when the fire Jason Kidd talk was happening a couple months ago and everything, right after the deadline, we were talking about it, and we were like, is this team there? Are they? Is this what a Jason Kidd team is, or is it that team that got red hot and made that run to the West Finals? Fair conversation. At the time, I was like, you could put just as much argument and weight against the argument of him not being the guy and him not being that. Like that was the outlier, was that run. But now with how the team responded to close this regular season, I'm like, all right, maybe it is closer to this. And maybe now you have health and you have the pieces. So we'll see. I know you're pressed on time. You got an appointment.
Yeah, I got to get this haircut because I've been looking crazy. Got to get this haircut and look a little younger. Boy, I'll be looking old when I got that hair growing out. DDP.
All right, man. Well, I'll let you go and I'll wrap this thing up. Appreciate you coming on. Good talking with you.
I appreciate you letting me come on, and we got to do this again. Definitely, we got to do this again when you got time, DDP, because we're going to have to definitely do shows, especially when we get these Clippers, y'all. We're getting these Clippers. This is our time to get these boys. They've been getting us these last 2 years. I'm tired of it. We got the squad. Let's go ahead and bust these boys' heads because it's our time, man. We need to get there.
I like it. Guys, check out Big Game James' channel if you haven't already. If you haven't seen his content, give it a check. Give him a subscribe. And I'll catch up with you later, James.
Appreciate you, big dog. I'll talk to you soon. Thank everybody out there, and I'll talk to y'all soon. Go Mavs.
There you go. All right. Well, as I get ready to put a bow on this stream here, any questions real quick, hit me up in the comments. Put those questions either at DDP or at the Dallas Prospect. I'll be able to see that. I'll take a few questions before I wrap up here. Yeah, I'm eager for Sunday to get here. As we talked about these teams being nothing like they were when they met before, like I understand that like you can look at like the rosters and say like, oh, well, 40% of the roster is still, I get that. But the overall makeup of the team, the structure of the team and how they're constructed, which is a very redundant thing I just said, is totally different. And I didn't even mention the fact that Jason Kidd hasn't been the coach for those previous series. Those were both Rick Carlisle. That was the closing of his chapter in Dallas. So yeah, that's also worth saying. Do I think that Kidd is a positive or a negative for us? If I had to compare, because I'm not comparing those Clipper teams to this Mavericks team, I'm trying to look at like, okay, is this a better Dallas team than either of those teams? Unquestionably, no doubt. Top to bottom, every single position. Present day Luka is better than that Luka. Kyrie is better than Porzingis. You have, the Jalen Brunson in 2020 and 2021. Well, 2020, he was out with injury with a torn rotator cuff. that he suffered against the Hawks, I believe. And then 2021, he basically was glued to the bench. And that was the reason why Dallas, I think, had some reservations about giving him that contract going into the next year, that extension, the 4 for 55 you could have gotten him for, is because they were like, yeah, but against longer athletic wings, he's limited. And so they were reluctant to give him that contract. They ended up giving that same deal to Dorian Finney-Smith. That's a whole different conversation, but Dallas's roster, its front court, not even close. That 2021 team, not even close to what this current front court is. Obviously, every position I look at for Dallas, I'm like, this is just a better team. The only question I would have is, do I take present day Jason Kidd over where Rick Carlisle was then? I'm going to say yes, but I think that's largely because I do think, comparatively speaking, Kidd does a better job of having his team's ear. Carlisle, by 2020, 2021, I felt like most of the locker room, Luka especially, was kind of tuning him out. Like, to the extent they had to listen, they would, but I don't think the guys would go to war for him. Now, I do think we saw in that playoff run 2 years ago, that series against the Suns in particular, the swarming defense, when you're up like 25 points, you're in the fourth quarter and your reserves are flying around like their hair is on fire, closing out on shooters and just making life miserable for your opponent. That's where you look at it and you say, like, this team is buying everything he's selling. Now, I definitely feel like last year he was at risk of losing them. And that is a record time, I feel like, to lose a team, to go from like, bro, I will run through a brick wall for you, to, oh, man, I don't know about that, man. Now you just sound like a corny goofball who doesn't really know what he's doing. And then this run, with the way they closed out this year after the trade deadline and how he was able to finally respond to the criticism and make the adjustments, and what we really got over the last 30 games in general, a lot of reason to feel like, okay, maybe we are going to get a run like this where they are going to get back on board and we're going to see the team respond to him, and he's going to press the right buttons and the right strategies. Also, keep in mind too, that coaching staff from 2 years ago is not the same as what we have now. It's not just Sweeney either. Like, you lost Igor as well. Like, you had turnover in that coaching staff, which is one of those things I was concerned about, because I was like, I really liked the coaching staff he put together coming in. No, unsurprisingly, after that run, 2 of the guys left. Well, one of them was a little later, but still, I had concerns about how he would respond. And initially, it didn't look good. It looked very bad, in fact. So the fact that now we're going to see this is like, this run to me is going to show, like, do I invest in Kidd or not? I fear and anticipate that the Mavericks just will at this point. They've already decided, barring just a catastrophic calamity, which sounds extra dark and dim. But if he has a good performance here, then maybe, just maybe, I'll get on board with at least saying, like, all right, yeah, give him his chance. Because right now I'm neutral to still leaning towards, like, I don't know that you're the difference maker, but you're already here and I guess you've earned it. Let me hit up these first questions here. I saw a couple come from, what was it, Frank? I always get this crossed around here. Frank at DDP, you think Kidd already has a contract ready to sign, or is Nico actually waiting to see the results of the playoffs first before giving him the extension? I would hope that they haven't discussed it yet, only because, one, I don't wait until I've seen everything. And two, I want Kidd as motivated as possible. And so if he's still not sure, or he still thinks like, I think I've done enough to get it, but let me be sure, that's different versus if it's already been like unofficially verbally agreed to, like, yeah, the general terms, we'll hash out the rest, but the general thing is in place. I don't like that. I don't want that. So I would hope, even if there's been an inclination or a implication of like, we're very happy from like the front office and Nico, I would hope it hasn't been in any sort of way that would like make him less focused or less hungry, thinking he's coaching for his job. He's probably not in that full mindset, but I want him as motivated as possible, thinking he's got to show out as much as the players have to perform. Any concerns? This is a Cowboy X Factor. Any concerns on which Mavs number 3 is, because it can change, which is fine, but whoever it is, the team effort individually needs to step up. I mean, your number 3, if you're going off of just like a guy that can make a clutch shot for you, your third most clutch shooter is Exum. Dante's Inferno is your third most clutch shooter, I think, right now. But Hardaway, if he finds a rhythm, he is still like, if Hardaway is hitting, it's almost lights out. If you got Luka and Kyrie doing anything like Luka and Kyrie can, should, and will, and then you add in Hardaway, it's game over. You can't do anything about it. The thing is, Hardaway, you don't know if you're going to get that Hardaway. And usually you're not. But if you do, spectacular. So PJ Washington is a huge factor here, because as I've talked about him, I've said like he's not had a lot of great offensive performances as a Maverick. He's actually been pretty inconsistent. However, his versatile defense, his hustle, his effort, his rebounding, all of that has made such an impact that even in his bad games, he's putting out like solid net ratings because he's just impacting the game in other ways. So if you get a good performance out of him and he's able to be disruptive defensively, or at least make those guys really, really have to work for it, you're in a real good position. So I think PJ is your effectively third guy, even if he's not your third leading scorer. And, honestly, Gafford, I think absolutely will be somebody averaging 13, 14 points a game, 8, 9, 10 rebounds, blocking a shot and a half per game. I think Gafford's going to have a big series. And, he led the league in field goal percentage this year, had like the third or fourth highest field goal percentage ever for a season. Phenomenal stuff. And being able to have a weapon like that is just so huge. I talked about it with James. The fact that Luka can, will, and does headhunt Zubats into oblivion. If you force Zubats off the floor, Gafford and Lively are going to feast. Just feast. And if Zubats doesn't get forced off the floor because you're afraid of them feasting, all right, well, Luka will keep picking them apart. Or it'll open up things for other guys as well. Like the Clippers can't just deploy the same strategy of like, look, we know Luka's going to get his. We just got to make sure we slow everybody else down enough. We're going to have to make everybody else beat us. Dallas didn't have the firepower to do that before, and they still got damn close, really twice, but you could definitely say once. And so that's what it boils down to, is just what can you do? What chess moves can you make? And I do think of Ty Lue as a good tactician. And so that is a point of concern for me as I consider this series. Like, if he finds a good counterpunch to that, do I have then confidence in Jason Kidd to counter that? I don't know. That is where Kidd frustrates me, especially if it's a change made like mid-game. Really worries me. Is I think a generally good coach. I do not consider him a great coach, and adjustments on the fly, in-game adjustments, not always his strongest suit. At least at certain stretches, it's been particularly bad, whether that be rotational adjustments, whether that be, strategic, just how you're running your offense, how you're directing your attention and your focus, whatever. So that's my big question mark there. I know I kind of pivoted into a different area there with that answer, but you get the idea. THA will not play over 10 minutes, methinks. Yeah, I'd be down for that, unless he's on a burner, in which case let it burn, baby. The playoffs will be key for Kidd. Yes, they will. DGK, yo, DDP, did you see the Kyrie clip talking about they ain't got time for bullshit? Yeah. Nah, man, I absolutely love it. Absolutely love it, because that's the leadership mindset you need. You need somebody in there that's going to be no nonsense, just like go in, let's get it done. Like we're not in here to mess around. We got business to handle, and we're going to handle it. Follow my lead. That's exactly the kind of leadership we want. I love seeing it. How come no one in the chat mentions Chet when the Thunder improved by 18 wins? They were trash before he was in the lineup. Why would we be talking about Chet when we're talking about the Mavericks? Chet's a very nice player for the Thunder. Would it not be for the Wemby thing this year, had Chet not gotten hurt last year, I think Chet would have been Rookie of the Year. Phenomenal resume. It's just he's in the year with Wemby. So it is what it is. I think you're talking about, like, as it relates to the MVP conversation. I'm guessing I'm kind of putting two and two together where that came from. Yeah, that's a fair conversation. Why, if people want to point to the record for Shea Gilgis Alexander, and why he got MVP. Yeah, no, I'm following the bouncing ball now with where that came from. It should be brought up, but it's not, and that's a shame. They made very apparent they weren't going to put Luka in any real contention or consideration for the award. Unfortunately, he'll be on the stand. He'll be like the bronze medalist, if you will, of this awarding, because I'm thinking they're going to go probably Shea, then Jokic. My guess is that Shea. That's just a weird gut feeling. It feels like it's going to be Jokic, but I almost feel like it's the swerve. Maybe it's going to end up being Shea instead, but it's probably Jokic, then Shea, then Luka. And I think Luka's got the best argument of any of them. And if he's not the winner, he should absolutely be the runner up. But it's almost like they're like, that's too close. We better keep him at third now. Okay, guys. Not really a question, but did you see videos of PJ participating? Wow, I can't read today. Practicing threes late at night. How hype will you be if PJ starts shooting threes efficiently? If PJ finds his outside shot and starts shooting even back to his normal mark, Dallas is going to be really, really good. Because I've been talking about, like, his impact and how much he's helped this team, despite not having any real consistency, like with his offensive game, and his 3-point shot in particular has taken a dip. If he finds that, goodness, this team is going to be so fun to watch down this final stretch of what we got here with this postseason run. I don't know. I love seeing it, but at the same time, I got to see it in the game, because doing it in practice is one thing, doing it on the stage is another. DDP, how will you be watching these games? What's your routine? How will I be watching the games? Well, probably be just watching them simply at home as it relates to me doing shows around them. My guess is it's going to follow the day after. I got some flexibility with my schedule here, so still got to get up early because I got a 3-year-old. So that is what that is. When you're getting up as early as 4 a.m. because you didn't have a choice in the matter, it's kind of hard to stay up super late, but I'll suffer that as I have to for the late night games. But as I look at this, I'm probably thinking I'm going to be doing post-game shows the next morning. And then I might try and dive deeper whenever we have like a travel day in there to do another stream or another video, maybe another video like the preview one I did yesterday. That seemed to get some good feedback aside from my little audio snafu with the mono channel. Whoops. An afternoon game, Cowboy X Factor. An afternoon game is heaven for me, especially if it's got to be a first game in LA where the time zone can just mess with you. But that absolutely is huge. That puts my mind at ease by itself. It's just one less game that we have to deal with that kind of BS. Mentioned, like, do you have a certain meal? Oh, yeah. See, I'm kind of an old head at this point. I'm in my mid-30s, but I feel like an old head. I don't go out to a lot of sports bars anymore to doing that. I've used to do that a lot. I used to do prospect live streams, watch parties at bars and restaurants and stuff, and that was fun and an interesting experience. But just the hassle of taking all the equipment and everything there and setting up and trying to maintain a solid connection and everything, it's a challenge. It's a challenge. So I always got big respect for the guys that do those kind of watch parties, like the Sports Fury, Sean and Josh in particular, my dudes. I don't know how you have that kind of energy and just commitment to do as many games as they do. Every single sport, it feels like they're not just getting like their own teams, but they're getting like the big games of every week for NFL and NBA playoffs and MLB playoffs, and they'll pick up a hockey game or they'll pick up the Olympics. I'm just like, How do you do this? How do you manage this? Because I lose my voice if I talk for 2 hours on a video. Just doing the video yesterday, working for two hours worth of stuff I shot, had to reshoot some of it. Just doing that, I was kind of like, voice is kind of stripped now. And that's in the comfort of my own home, let alone if you're somebody that's going out to these venues and shouting and talking over people trying to be heard. Like that's next level. So pregame meals, I don't really have a pregame meal, but I will say this: win or lose, I will either toast my misery or I will toast victory with a nice old fashioned, smoked old fashioned, as I like to make them. But I think that's going to wrap it up for my time here. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Thank you, everybody, as well, for checking out Big Game James, his channel. Big credit to James coming on here again. Been far too long since he and I ran it back. We'll have to try and do more of that here in the new future. Is it a new future? Maybe I'm already tired now. I'll take this last question here. What's easier for you, live streams or edited? Easier? Edited. Because live streams don't require editing. So like you could say like, oh yeah, just 30 minutes. If I'm doing 30 minutes, just hit live, mess it up or not, I'm just going. And if nothing else, maybe my quirkiness comes across as charming a little bit. I don't know. That's generally easy. But there are times where I'm like, man, I wish it didn't take so long for me to look up something or find a particular stat or fact I'm looking for to reinforce a point I want to make, brush up my own memory so I can give a better fact. So when I run into those situations, I hate live stream because then I'm just like, I hate dead air. I hate silence. I feel like I'm wasting people's time and looking unprepared. So that throws me. So for that, edited. But the ability, if I'm really on my shit, the ability just to jump on, talk for 30, 40 minutes, or in the case of today, like an hour and be done. Fantastic. Love it. So definitely just a mixed bag. Also edited sweet because like yesterday's setup, humble brag, I really liked the lighting and the framing and everything I had with that. I can't do that live. I can't set that up live and have that be like a reliable thing. So getting the chance just to film it and then chop it up, edit it, improve it as I need to, make slight adjustments, whether it's color correction, audio bump, whatever. Just great. And I'm a content producer, so that's what I do. I work in post all the time. So anyway, this does wrap up my time. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the Dallas Prospect, and until next time, guys, remember, every legend was once a prospect. Peace.